Hey, thanks for checking out my video. Today's video is about water, my whole water system. It's pretty simple. I just have a freshwater tank, a pump that runs to a faucet, drains into a gray water tank, and then the other side runs to a hose that I can rinse off banjo or take a cold shower. I do not have hot water, I do not have a toilet, I do not have a compostable toilet, and I don't have a shower. Some of those things might happen in the future, but it's a pretty simple system right now. I'm just going to walk you through the steps for me to set that up, setting up the drainage and then checking it, and then setting up the freshwater intake and that pump to run the freshwater to the different places, and then checking that system to make sure there aren't leaks. So that's what we're going to do today. Thanks again for checking out the video. Here we go. So from the back of the van you can get to my water system. There'll be a hose here and the sink's there, so it made sense to put it back here. This is my water tank. It is a 20-gallon freshwater tank from Class A Customs. It has 4 fittings, 2 are 1.5 inch and 2 are 1/2 inch. They're all female. The top 1/2 inch one I will use as a vent, just to let air in and out when I'm pumping water out or when I'm putting water in. This hole will be used for the intake water. This is where I'll pour fresh water into the container to fill it up. You need that to be a top one so that you can fill the container up. The bottom piece here is where I'll pull water out of into my diaphragm pump, and that will pump the water to the sink up there or to the faucet that I'll have on the back for hosing off banjo. So I have the PVC that's going to attach here. From there it'll run through this little adjustment so it gets a little slope so that the water will come down into the tank so it won't splash back out. But it'll run down this little pipe and into here, and that's how I fill up the water tank. The good thing is this is opaque, so you can see where the water level is, so I won't overfill the water tank. So right here beside my water tank is where I have the electrical run from my batteries. Then I'll attach that to a little switch so I can turn the water pump on and off, and that will sit right up here where you can see it from the outside. So this is the filter that I will go into the hole down there at the bottom. This just takes out any particles that are like physical pieces that are coming through the water so they don't mess up the pump. So that will go on first. Attached to that will be this flexible hose that goes into that hole. I put a little adapter on that, and that will go into that little hole and run up here to my water pump, which will be mounted on the wall down here. From the water pump, it'll go into the accumulator. The accumulator's job is to just maintain water pressure so the pump doesn't have to activate that often. This just holds water and pushes on it a little so that whenever the pump turns off, this maintains the water pressure for longer, so then your pump doesn't have to kick on as often. So that will be next. That'll be mounted on the wall as well, and after that it'll attach through this hose into my water system. So from the accumulator, this will connect to the T here, so I get water pressure in both directions. One end goes down here to the sink. The other end will hit an elbow, come across to a valve to where I can turn this on and off. Then it'll connect to this flexible hose and connect to my shower and banjo rinser, which connects out here. From the pump, if you follow the PEX all the way up to here, there's a valve cut off here. From there it goes through the 2x4 and runs into my Wodor filter. And then out of the Wodor filter, that other cord comes underneath, connects to both the hot and cold for the sink, goes up to the faucet, and comes out right there. So here's the sink. The drain from that is here, and it runs to this T. Above that T is a Studer vent to allow for better airflow, which will allow for better drainage. Then I have a trap, which allows for odor control, so the odors can't come back out of the gray water tank. And then that hits a little elbow and goes over to my gray water tank. So this is how the water goes to my gray water tank. This is my gray water tank. It's from REI. The adapter on it is weird. It doesn't match normal sizes for threadings, so I had to attach that using a galvanized piece of piping. That has an adapter for garden hose, which is what I use to use my quick disconnect. I'll show you what that looks like a little more up close in a second. From that, I hit a valve so I can turn this release on and off when I take the gray water tank out so I don't spill anything onto the floor. And then it hits another adapter to change to the wastewater, and that's where the drain from the sink comes. So the water comes out from the sink, hits an adapter, hits a valve, which I can turn on and off, hits a quick disconnect, and then drops into this using this galvanized piece. The quick disconnect is just so that I can remove my gray water, go pour it out, and then click it right back on with very little work. So I don't have to like unscrew something. The quick disconnect is really simple. It's just this piece here that detaches. It holds still, but it detaches when you pull this little sleeve down, and then it can slide right out. You can slide it right back in by pulling the sleeve as well. And then it clicks into place, and that's how you know it's reattached. So I got the drainage system on. I need to make sure that it's not going to cause any problems once I try to hook up the freshwater on drainage, because I don't want to have a mess on both systems at the same time. So I'm going to test the drainage system first, and then we'll get on to working on to the freshwater system. Ready?
Sure. Oop, oop, oop.
Yep. Here, that's all this is here for you. All right, so this part was leaking right where I attach it to the sink, and that's because I didn't put any kind of gasket in there. So I've got this little plastic piece that came with the sink, setting that down in there, and that should stop the leaking. All right, round two. Alright, so now I'm thinking that this trap is on upside down. See, this part's being twisted upward. I think you need to be doing it the other way, twist it downward. So I'll just take this side and attach it here, take this side and attach it here. Because this part's getting a really slow leak. There's a little tiny bit of water sitting on top of this. And I think we can fix that. Alright, so I think I've got all the leaks tightened up or sealed or whatever, depending on the leak. So now I'm just going to do a little bit of strapping and then test out the freshwater. So the next step is to attach my water pump to the PEX to attach that to my sink and my hose. The way I'm doing that is with these crimping rings. So you take this tool and you pinch down on it to close those rings onto the PEX. I'll do that onto some brass fittings and some other attachments. And if it's PEX, I'll crimp it. If it's brass or other threaded material other than plastic, then I'll use some Teflon tape just to make sure you get a really good seal on that brass. It sticks to it, barely gets in the way, but it makes a good watertight seal. So the next step is to take the PVC pipes for the freshwater and use the primer and the cement to stick those in. It's pretty simple. You just wrap it around with a coat of primer. Before that dries, just add a coat of cement. So that's what I'm going to do next. intake. It runs through this PVC into the freshwater tank. I can fill it up with a funnel or whatever pump to dump the water in there, or I can use this little garden hose attachment if I do have a hose to attach there. GoPro, stop recording. All right, so the next step is to fill up my freshwater tank, run that pump and see if it works. Make sure I'm not getting any leaks in the system on the way to my sink or my hose, and hopefully that'll run pretty smoothly. I bet there will be leaks or something that goes wrong, but hopefully it'll be something small and I can fix it. So I've already sprung a leak, literally right here. It made it to the pump and to the very next connector and sprung a leak. So hooray. All right, I took the accumulator off. This is the piece that connected the accumulator to the pump, and I think that's where it was leaking. You can even see a piece of the accumulator thing still stuck in there. So here's the piece I was using. It's a PEX crimped onto two adapters, barb adapters. But instead of this, because it's really hard to tighten into this tiny spot, I'm going to use a flexible hose and just join it with a loop. So it'll pretty much do the same thing. All right, attempt number 2. We tightened up everything. I switched out for a flexible hose between the pump and the accumulator. See, it's still got the tag on it, and then that runs to the T. So I'm going to start it up again. Hopefully we'll not have any leaks this time. All right, so that's all watertight. Next, I'm going to switch this valve over to on. Switch it on, so that'll run the water through this hose to my shower head. It's capped on the other side, so then I should be able to turn this nozzle and shoot water out of this head here. That was good. It relieved the pressure, it built it up again, and it kicked itself back off. Now here's the test. Released the pressure. It kicked that back on. No leaks. No leaks. The mist feature. All right, so now I've opened up this valve, I've tightened this nut, and then on the other side I've tightened up all 3 of the nuts on this piece that run up to the sink. We are ready to give it a go. All right. No leaks. Sounds good. Don't see any leaks. All right. Yeah, boy. Drain is looking good. No drips. It's draining well. Yeah! So that's my water system. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want some advice on yours, I've got a couple of things. One would be use flexible hoses where the space is tight, just because they're easier to tighten up. They'll handle vibrations better, things like that. But then I used PEX, and I suggest using PEX for long distances because it's inexpensive and easy to crimp on there. The other piece of advice I'd give you is I would just be ready for a leak. Like, as much as you do to perfect it, there's almost certainly going to be a leak somewhere. Just be ready for that and then fix it. It won't be that bad. You can fix it and move on with the whole process. The other thing I want to mention is that I don't have hot water, a toilet, or a shower, and I don't think I'll ever have a shower, but I could put a hot water system or a compostable toilet in there. I'd have to research hot water systems, and I would need to make room for a nature's head toilet. It would definitely be a nature's head if I did a compostable toilet. They're just so well done, separating the solids and liquids and then churning, and has that little tiny fan to keep it going. So that'd be my recommendation if you want that compostable toilet in your build. Again, thanks for watching. Check out my other videos and send me comments and questions. That'd be awesome. Thanks again for watching.